You probably think canned foods are harmless, cheap, convenient, and built to last. But here's the truth. Some of those cans are ticking health traps, loaded with BPA, heavy metals, and bacteria that quietly grow in storage. For seniors, that danger isn't small. Those hidden toxins can hurt the heart, kidneys, and even memory. Today, we're breaking open the truth about 7 canned foods you must avoid at all costs, and 2 that are actually safe to eat. Let's begin with one that shows just how fast safety can slip when control does. Number 7. Vienna sausages. You can smell them before you even pull the tab. That metallic tang, the gelatinous broth clinging to pale little links that crumble with no resistance. For many, it's nostalgia in a can. For anyone past 45, it's a health hazard in disguise. Here's the math no one prints on the label. A single tiny can carries 700 to 1,000 milligrams of sodium. That's up to 3/4 of what the American Heart Association recommends for an entire day. And let's be honest. Who eats half a can? Most people finish the whole thing with crackers and call it lunch. For younger folks, that's just extra thirst. For older adults, especially those on blood pressure meds, kidney pills, or diuretics, that salt surge can wreck the careful balance those drugs maintain. Blood pressure spikes, fluid builds up, and suddenly your medication is fighting a losing battle. Even the reduced sodium versions, they still pack 700 plus milligrams. Because reduced only means 25% less than the original. Not safe. And here's the cruel twist. Some brands replace salt with potassium chloride. Sounds smart until you realize it can disrupt heart rhythm for anyone with kidney disease or on meds like lisinopril or spironolactone. The National Kidney Foundation warns against it outright. Imagine trying to eat healthier, only to push your heart toward chaos. And the risks don't stop at the recipe. They're inside the can itself. Vienna sausages are low-acid canned foods, which means they rely on precise sterilization and airtight seals to prevent botulism. If that seal fails, there's no warning smell. The CDC calls botulinum toxin invisible, tasteless, and deadly. Remember the Conagra recall of 2023? Over 2 million pounds of canned meat, including Armour Vienna sausages, pulled for potential packaging defects that could let contamination slip in. Even when the seal holds, the can lining raises new questions. Most are coated with plastic films to prevent corrosion. Some still use BPA. Others use BPA-free alternatives that scientists haven't fully tested. Europe's regulators dropped BPA's safe exposure limit to almost 0 in 2023, while the FDA still looks the other way. And if you've ever faced hormone-sensitive cancers or diabetes, that uncertainty isn't something you can ignore. Then there are the curing chemicals. Nitrites keep those sausages pink and shelf-stable, but they can also form nitrosamines, the same compounds that pushed the World Health Organization to label processed meats as known carcinogens. Add phosphate additives that strain aging kidneys and arteries, and you've built a minefield in one 5-minute snack. Sure, Vienna sausages are soft, easy to chew, and fast to eat, but so are tuna with mashed beans or scrambled eggs with spinach, which give you protein without hijacking your blood pressure. At the end of the day, Vienna sausages aren't just salty comfort food. They're a concentrated mix of sodium, nitrites, preservatives, and plasticizers, all aimed straight at the weak points of the aging body. The can is small. The consequences aren't. And if that one rattled you, wait until you crack open a can that hisses like the ocean itself. Up next at number 6, canned tuna. At number 6, we've got canned tuna, the pantry classic that smells like the ocean and feels like a safe bet. The lid flexes, the brine splashes, and that familiar wave of salt and fish hits you. For many, it's nostalgia in a can, a go-to protein that's cheap, reliable, and quick. But the trust you place in that can, it's shakier than you think. Let's start with the heavyweight hiding behind the label, mercury. Light tuna, usually skipjack, has far less of it than albacore white tuna, almost a 3-fold difference. Sounds trivial until you remember mercury doesn't leave the body easily. It builds up slowly in the brain and kidneys over time. For a healthy 25-year-old, that's wiggle room. For someone in their 60s managing blood pressure, cholesterol, or kidney meds, it's a slow, silent drip of danger. By the time you feel the fog, tremors, or fatigue, the damage has already been quietly stacking up for years. But mercury isn't the only curveball. Sometimes it's not what's in the fish, it's what happens after it's caught. If tuna sits too long on a warm dock, natural histidine in the flesh transforms into histamine. And histamine doesn't care if you grill it, freeze it, or can it. Once it's there, it's there. You pop open that can, make a sandwich, and an hour later you're flushed, heart racing, skin itching. Not an allergy, but histamine poisoning. Try explaining that to an ER nurse when your tuna melt feels like a heart attack. Then comes the silent killer, botulism. It's rare, yes, but when it happens, it's unforgiving. Botulinum toxin gives no warning, no smell, no taste, no color. The 2025 recall proved that again. Dozens of tuna brands pulled from shelves at Costco, Trader Joe's, and H-E-B after easy-open lids were found to let in the world's most lethal bacteria. One small factory slip, one weak seam, and that harmless-looking can becomes a sealed vial of paralysis. Even if the seal is perfect, the lining can still betray you. Remember those BPA-free banners plastered across cans? Europe now says the safe daily intake of BPA is virtually zero. The FDA still hasn't budged. And the replacements, BPS and BPF, might be no better, with the same hormone-disrupting effects that worry scientists. If you've survived prostate cancer, fight diabetes, or just prefer not to gamble on chemical roulette, those letters, BPA, BPS, BPF, aren't the comfort you think they are. Now let's talk salt. Even tuna packed in water brings a couple 100 milligrams of sodium per serving. Switch to flavored or seasoned packs and the numbers climb fast. And those reduced sodium versions? They often sneak in potassium chloride. Fine for a teen. Dangerous for anyone with kidney disease or on heart medication. One sandwich could be enough to send your blood chemistry off balance and your heart rhythm skipping beats. Check the ingredient line closely and you'll spot the small print no one brags about. Soy broth, pyrophosphates, stabilizers, all additives that weigh down aging kidneys and stiff arteries. Sure, tuna still brings omega-3s and solid protein, but the path from boat to can to plate is riddled with weak links. Mercury that accumulates, histamine that survives, botulism if the seal falters, chemicals regulators can't agree on. The smell of the sea may feel familiar, but the risks hiding inside that can are anything but. And if fish can become a chemistry experiment, wait until you see what's lurking in something far more innocent, the can that's supposed to comfort you on cold nights. Coming up next at number 5, canned soup. At number 5, we're ladling out a supposed comfort food that's anything but comforting, canned soup. It has the reputation of being warm, cheap, and quick, a hug in a bowl when you don't feel like cooking. But for older adults, that comfort hides 3 dangerous traps: sodium bombs, potassium swaps, and chemical linings that regulators still can't agree on. Add the risk of botulism from a compromised can, and that cozy tomato soup suddenly looks a lot less innocent. Let's start with the danger you can't see. Soups like chicken noodle, cream of mushroom, and beef stew are low-acid foods. That means they need to be sterilized in high-pressure, high-heat retorts to kill off Clostridium botulinum spores. If that time, temperature, or pressure is off by even a fraction, those spores can survive, and once sealed, the can becomes a perfect incubator. You won't see it, you won't smell it, you won't taste it. That's why public health agencies repeat one rule over and over. If a can bulges, spurts, leaks, or dents deeply along the seam, throw it away sealed. No sniff test. No, boil it longer. Just toss it. Now the sodium hit, the one hiding in plain sight. A half cup of condensed tomato soup packs around 480 milligrams of sodium. But who eats half a cup? Pour a full bowl, and you're swallowing over 1,000 milligrams in one sitting. Nearly an entire day's limit if you're watching your blood pressure. Chicken noodle or vegetable beef? Even worse, 600 to 900 milligrams per serving. Add bread, crackers, or deli sides, and your sodium count skyrockets. Reduce sodium? Don't fall for it. The term only means 25% less than the original. So a 900 milligram can drop to 675, still a salt overload. Only low sodium, 140 milligrams, or very low sodium, 35 milligrams, truly count. Always check the fine print. Here's the twist that catches even careful shoppers. When companies cut sodium, many quietly swap in potassium chloride, marketed now as potassium salt. It sounds healthy, but if your kidneys don't filter potassium well or you're on ACE inhibitors or ARBs, that can send potassium levels soaring. The National Kidney Foundation warns older adults directly. Steer clear of these substitutes. Hyperkalemia can stop your heart cold. And while all that's swirling inside the can, the container itself might be leaching danger too. For decades, soup cans were lined with BPA-based epoxy. Europe slashed the safe daily limit so low that almost any exposure exceeds it, and by late 2024, the EU banned BPA in food packaging altogether. The FDA still claims it's fine. Worse, BPA-free doesn't always mean safe. Many companies simply replaced it with BPS or BPF, cousins with the same hormone-mimicking concerns. Add to that the extras no one thinks about. Cream soups bulked with starches and sugars, phosphate stabilizers that stress kidneys and bones, and undeclared allergens that spark recalls every year. Your cozy chicken noodle? It's quietly becoming a chemical cocktail wrapped in nostalgia. Canned soup promises warmth, but what it often delivers is a blast of salt, a can-lining chemical brew, and unpredictable ingredients your body struggles to process after 50. That little whoosh when the opener cuts through? It might sound like convenience, or the start of a problem you'll never smell coming. Want to keep your pantry safe? Hit subscribe, because next up we're cracking a can that looks hearty but hides a far nastier surprise. At number 4, canned chili. At number 4, we've got a pantry favorite that looks hearty, smells rich, and hides more danger than most realize: canned chili. It's the ultimate quick meal: beans, meat, and spices ready to heat and eat. But here's the uncomfortable truth. This is one of the riskiest cans in the grocery aisle. Why? Because chili lives in the low-acid zone of canning science, a space where one tiny mistake can turn dinner into disaster. These cans must be sterilized at 240 to 250 degrees Fahrenheit under pressure to stop Clostridium botulinum from ever waking up. When that process is done right, you're safe. But when it slips, even slightly, you've got a botulism trap. And the scariest part, you'll never smell it coming. That's not theory, it's history. Back in 2007, a commercial chili sauce plant underprocessed its batches, leading to a nationwide recall, hospitalizations, and some of the most serious foodborne botulism cases in U.S. history. The CDC made it clear: insufficient heat treatment lets spores survive, and toxin formed inside sealed cans. People ended up paralyzed from what they thought was a simple dinner. But botulism isn't the only red flag here. Canned chili is also a salt bomb, a potassium swap minefield, and a chemical cocktail of phosphate additives and BPA linings. Each one alone is risky. Stacked together, they're a recipe for trouble. Take sodium first. A single cup of canned chili with beans can hit 1,000 milligrams of sodium. Eat the full can, and you're consuming nearly half your daily safe limit in one meal. The American Heart Association caps adults with high blood pressure at 1,500 milligrams per day, meaning one bowl already pushes you over halfway. Now flip that reduced sodium can and brace yourself, because what replaces the salt is often worse. Manufacturers love potassium chloride, renamed potassium salt to sound harmless. For someone young and healthy, fine. But for adults over 50 on ACE inhibitors, ARBs, or potassium-sparing diuretics, it can send blood potassium skyrocketing. Hyperkalemia doesn't always give warning signs. It can cause sudden, irregular heart rhythms that strike without notice. One can, one label oversight, and you're in danger. Then come the phosphates, the secret ingredient behind that perfectly chewy meat texture. Sodium phosphate keeps chili thick, moist, and stable for years on a shelf. But it also delivers highly absorbable phosphorus, the kind that overworks kidneys, hardens arteries, and weakens bones. For older adults or anyone with kidney strain, that's a slow, invisible injury. And we haven't even reached the can itself. Most chili cans are lined with BPA-based epoxy. The FDA still calls current levels safe, but Europe's Food Safety Authority disagrees. They've slashed the safe limit to nearly zero and are banning BPA in all food packaging. Even worse, BPA-free doesn't mean harmless. Many companies swap in BPS or BPF, chemicals that behave almost exactly like BPA inside the body. Same hormone disruption, same long-term risks. So when you add it all up, sodium overload, potassium substitutes, phosphate additives, and chemical linings, canned chili becomes more chemistry experiment than comfort food. And because it's a low-acid stew, it carries that extra risk if the factory's sterilization isn't perfect. It's not just dinner in a can. It's a gamble, one that stacks the odds against your heart, kidneys, and nerves. Because in this aisle, hearty doesn't mean healthy. And if you think sweetness equals safety, just wait. Our next entry proves how a little syrup can hide a dangerous secret. Coming in at number 3, canned fruit. At number 3, sweetness takes the stage, and so does danger. Canned fruit, especially peaches, pears, and fruit cocktail, looks like the most harmless thing in the pantry. Bright, syrupy, and cheerful, the picture of wholesome comfort. But dip your spoon in and what you're eating isn't fruit anymore. It's dessert in disguise. 1 cup of fruit cocktail in heavy syrup contains over 40 grams of sugar. That's 11 teaspoons poured straight into your bloodstream before dinner even starts. Light syrup? Don't be fooled. It's still sugar water, just thinner. The USDA literally defines light by sugar concentration, not health value. For anyone past 45, that sugar hit lands differently. Blood sugar spikes don't just make you dizzy, they mess with your medications, drive up blood pressure, and quietly chip away at heart health. A JAMA study found adults who got 17 to 21% of calories from added sugar had a 38% higher risk of dying from heart disease. Push sugar intake higher, and the risk nearly tripled. That syrupy sweetness isn't just dessert, it's part of that deadly tally. And it's not only about diabetes. If you're on statins, blood pressure meds, or acid reducers, constant sugar spikes can blunt their effects. A can here, a light dessert there, and your blood work starts telling the story. But the sugar's only half the plot. The real twist lies in the can itself. Most are lined with epoxy coatings that once relied heavily on BPA. The FDA still calls that safe. Europe doesn't. In 2023, the EU's Food Safety Authority slashed BPA's safe limit to nearly 0, and by 2024, banned it outright in food packaging. The US hasn't followed suit, and tests still detect bisphenols, even in cans labeled BPA-free. So that bright fruit cocktail you thought was wholesome, it's been soaking in a chemical soup. And that glossy red cherry on top? It's not innocent either. For decades, it used FD&C Red No. 3, a dye now banned by the FDA by 2027 after studies linked it to cancer in animals. Some brands have switched, others haven't. That neon cherry is a warning light in disguise. The dangers don't stop there. In the past year alone, California regulators recalled canned pears over unsafe lead and cadmium levels. Before that, another recall surfaced for glass shards in fruit products. Rare? Yes. But proof that canned fruit isn't as harmless as it looks. So what can you do? You've got options. Draining and rinsing syrup helps a little, but the smarter move is to skip syrup altogether. Choose fruit packed in juice or water, or head to the frozen aisle. There, you'll find real fruit. No can lining, no dyes, no syrup traps. Half a cup of fruit, paired with yogurt or nuts, gives sweetness without the sugar spike. It's not deprivation, it's protection. Because canned fruit in syrup isn't fruit. It's a sugar bomb in a metal question mark, wrapped in nostalgia, but paid for in long-term risk. If that surprised you, hit the like button so more people find out, and subscribe for the next pantry truth you need to hear. Because next, we're opening a can that's supposed to be all strength and vitality, and finding something that looks like it's already given up. Coming in at number 2, canned spinach. At number 2, we've got a so-called superfood that's supposed to mean strength and vitality, but in a can, it tells a very different story. Canned spinach. You crack the lid and what spills out isn't the crisp green you expect. It's a soggy, grayish lump swimming in brine that smells more like metal than earth. And inside that mushy mess, a lineup of risks that stack fast once you're past 45. First hit, heavy metals. Spinach is a known cadmium accumulator, pulling it straight from soil like a sponge. And canning doesn't fix it. The cadmium stays. Over time, it builds up in the kidneys and bones. Europe has strict weekly limits for cadmium exposure, and the World Health Organization went further, setting monthly caps. Why? Because even small amounts matter when your body can hold on to the stuff for 15 years or more. Then comes the can, which isn't exactly harmless either. Most are coated inside with epoxy linings, historically made with BPA. The FDA still calls current levels safe, but Europe took the opposite path, banning BPA outright in food packaging. Now, BPA-free sounds like progress, but it often means BPS or BPF, chemical cousins with the same hormone-mimicking baggage. Now, the salt. 1 cup of canned spinach can pack over 700 milligrams of sodium, nearly a third of your day's limit gone in a few bites. Even no salt added cans sneak in around 200 milligrams, thanks to natural and processing sodium. And the reduced sodium versions? Often swapped for potassium chloride, a hidden danger if you've got kidney issues or take certain blood pressure meds. Too much potassium can quietly trigger irregular heart rhythms, and for seniors, that's no small risk. Then there's the spinach itself. Even in its best form, it's naturally high in oxalates, the sharp little crystals that can trigger kidney stones. Hospitals put spinach on the very high oxalate list, and canning doesn't lower that enough to make it safe for people prone to stones. On top of that, spinach is packed with vitamin K, great for clotting, but a nightmare if you're on warfarin. It can throw your medication balance completely off unless you eat the same amount every single week. No more, no less. And even if the spinach itself were flawless, the packaging risk remains. Low-acid foods like spinach are exactly the kind botulism loves if sterilization fails. And here's the chilling truth. You'll never smell it, never taste it. The CDC's guidance is crystal clear. If a can is bulging, leaking, spurting, or deeply dented at the seams, don't open it. Don't taste it. Just throw it away sealed. A sniff test won't save you. It's a game of foodborne Russian roulette. Spinach should be a superfood. But the canned version? It's a cluster of cadmium, salt, oxalates, vitamin K landmines, and suspect linings, all disguised as convenience. Want the nutrients without the risks? Go frozen. You'll get clean greens, quick cooking time, and none of the sludge. One look at that limp, dull green clump from the can, and you'll know this isn't strength in a can. It's a compromise dressed as convenience. And if that left a bad taste, brace yourself, because the next can doesn't just pretend to be healthy, it wears nostalgia like armor. Coming in at number 1, canned pasta. Finally, at number 1, the biggest pantry deception of them all, canned pasta. It looks like comfort. Pop the lid, and you're greeted by that sweet tomato scent, soft noodles, and a wave of childhood nostalgia. It feels safe, simple, cheap, and filling. But beneath that red sauce and memory, canned pasta is a textbook example of ultra-processed danger. This isn't noodles and tomato. It's a factory formula, built to survive years on a shelf and taste exactly the same every time you open it. To do that, companies load it with starch thickeners, sugars, added fats, and preservatives that keep it looking and tasting fresh long after it should have expired. Doctors have been sounding the alarm for years. Diets high in ultra-processed foods link directly to more heart disease, diabetes, and premature death. For anyone already fighting high blood pressure or cholesterol, this can is a ticking clock. Let's talk numbers. 1 cup of canned ravioli packs about 740 milligrams of sodium. A full can? Up to 1,300 milligrams. And let's be honest, nobody eats half. That's half or even a full day's sodium limit for anyone on diuretics or ACE inhibitors in one sitting. And unlike canned beans, you can't rinse this salt out. It's baked into the sauce. Even reduced sodium versions, they often hide something worse, potassium chloride, rebranded as potassium salt. It's fine for young, healthy people, but for seniors with kidney issues or anyone on blood pressure meds, that added potassium can tip your body into hyperkalemia, dangerously high potassium that can cause heart rhythm disturbances without warning. Then comes the can itself, and here's where it gets ugly. That acidic tomato sauce eats away at metal linings faster than almost any other food. The FDA still shrugs at BPA exposure, but Europe didn't. Their scientists tightened the safe limit by a staggering 20,000-fold, citing links to immune dysfunction. Even BPA-free labels don't mean what you think. Consumer Reports found that replacements like BPS and BPF can still leach into food and act just like BPA in the body. That means hormone disruption, higher blood pressure, and, in some studies, increased mortality risk. Add to that the sugar and corn syrup designed to make the sauce more kid-friendly. Then layer in phosphate additives to keep the meatballs springy, which quietly overload the kidneys. Nitrites, the same chemicals that make hot dogs pink, are still in many canned meat sauces, and they're officially classified as carcinogens by the World Health Organization. And the ingredient list? A minefield of allergens. Milk, soy, wheat, egg, sesame, all potential ER trips in one can if you're unlucky. Even how you store it can turn risky. Leave that can in a hot garage, you're essentially cooking the chemicals into the sauce. Open it and store leftovers in the same can. That metallic tang you taste is the lining breaking down. The fix is simple. Transfer leftovers to a glass container and use within a few days. But how many people actually do that? Bottom line, canned pasta sells nostalgia, but what it delivers is a mix of salt shocks, chemical linings, sneaky sugars, and kidney-stressing additives, all wrapped up in a red sauce of childhood memories. The flavor might remind you of easier times, but the health cost isn't worth the trip. The nostalgia is real. The safety, not so much. But don't panic. Not every can is a villain. A few shelf-stable staples still earn their spot in your pantry, and the next two might surprise you. At number 2 on the safe list, we've got canned beans, and they might just be your heart's best friend. At number 2 on the safe list, we finally get a win. Canned beans. Affordable, nutritious, surprisingly heart-friendly. For all the bad press around canned foods, beans are one of the few that genuinely earn their spot in your pantry, if you know how to pick and prep them right. Here's why they stand out. Beans are low-acid foods, which means in theory they could host Clostridium botulinum, the bacteria behind botulism. But here's the good news. Commercial canners don't just boil them. They use a process called retorting, essentially pressure cooking at 240 to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. That blast of heat sterilizes the can completely, destroying spores and bacteria. The result? If the can's intact, botulism risk is almost zero. And if something was wrong, you'd know it by the can, not the smell. Botulinum toxin doesn't change odor or color, but a bulging, leaking, or dented can is your red flag. Flat lid, tight seams, good. Bulge, leak, or deep seam dent, walk away. No second chances. For seniors, that's actually safer than most deli or ready-to-eat items, which can harbor listeria in the fridge. Once beans are sealed and cooled after processing, nothing else sneaks in until you open it. It's the difference between a locked vault and a public door that never closes. Most complaints about canned beans boil down to salt. And yes, some brands go heavy on it. But that's the easiest fix in the entire grocery aisle. Just pour them into a strainer and rinse for 10 to 30 seconds under running water. Studies show that quick rinse cuts 30 to 45% of sodium instantly, turning a salty gut bomb into a heart-healthy staple. Now let's talk benefits. Half a cup of beans delivers 7 to 9 grams of protein, 6 to 9 grams of fiber, plus potassium, iron, and folate, the very nutrients most older adults fall short on. Doctors and dietitians love beans because they lower cholesterol, stabilize blood sugar, and feed gut bacteria that improve digestion and immunity. Swap out one serving of meat for beans even a few times a week, and you'll notice the difference. Fewer spikes in blood sugar, better digestion, and a quieter scale. And about that gas myth? Manageable. Start small, rinse them well, and your gut will adapt within weeks. The fiber payoff is worth it. Even the can lining has improved here. Most major brands now use BPA-NI, not intentionally added coatings. Regulators may still debate trace exposure, but choosing BPA-free or BPA-NI labels and storing cans somewhere cool and dry, not in a hot garage, keeps your risk negligible. Bottom line, inspect, drain, rinse, and store smart. Do that, and canned beans aren't just safe. They're one of the best, budget-friendly foods for seniors. You get protein, fiber, and stability without the preservatives or hormone-mimicking risks that plague so many other cans. And believe it or not, the next safe pick might surprise you even more. It's acidic, shelf-stable, antioxidant-rich, and, when used right, even healthier than fresh. Coming in at number 1 on the safe list, canned tomatoes. And finally, taking the number 1 spot on the safe list, canned tomatoes. The pantry staple that actually earns its place. Crack one open and you hear that crisp hiss, smell that tangy aroma, and see a bright red surface untouched by mystery slime or bulging lids. That sound isn't just dinner, it's the sound of engineering done right. Here's why canned tomatoes are different. Tomatoes are what food scientists call high-acid foods. Their natural acidity, often boosted with a little citric acid, keeps their pH below 4.6, an environment too harsh for Clostridium botulinum, the deadly bacteria behind botulism. Add in industrial retort processing, sealed cans heated beyond 240 degrees Fahrenheit, and you get a sterile product designed to lock out one of the most dangerous foodborne toxins known to man. For seniors, that's game-changing, because the foods that most often send older adults to the hospital aren't the shelf-stable cans, They're the deli meats, soft cheeses, and prepped salads that quietly harbor listeria in refrigerators. Canned tomatoes don't play in that world. They're sealed, acidic, and sterile. As long as the can isn't bulging, leaking, or dented along the seams, the odds of contamination are almost zero. That's the safety story. Now here's the nutrition twist. Canning doesn't destroy tomatoes. It actually makes them better for you. The antioxidant lycopene, the red pigment that helps fight oxidative stress, becomes more bioavailable when tomatoes are heated and homogenized. Studies show you absorb more lycopene from canned sauce or paste than from a raw tomato slice. Add a drizzle of olive oil when cooking, and your body's absorption rate skyrockets even higher. Now, let's talk sodium. Some brands love to load it in, hundreds of milligrams per serving, but the solution is simple. Grab no salt added versions and season it yourself. Those low sodium, 140 milligrams, and very low sodium, 35 milligrams labels are legally defined, not marketing tricks. Just check the nutrition facts panel instead of trusting the front label. Next up, potassium. Tomatoes are naturally rich in it, which helps most hearts, but can be risky if you're on kidney medication or potassium-sparing diuretics. Some low-sodium products even swap in potassium chloride, listed as potassium salt. If that's you, stick to plain tomato products with no substitutes added. And yes, the can lining again matters. Most tomato brands now use BPA-free or BPA-NI, not intentionally added linings. That change happened because tomato acid was powerful enough to leach BPA faster than other foods. Regulators still argue about trace exposure, but if you store cans in a cool pantry, not a hot garage, you're already minimizing any risk. Want to skip metal entirely? Go for cartons or glass jars. Same flavor, even less worry. Bottom line, canned tomatoes are the rare case where modern processing actually makes food safer and more nutritious. They're acidic, sterile, antioxidant-rich, and endlessly useful. From pasta sauces to soups to stews. Pair them with a bit of olive oil, keep sodium in check, and you've got one of the smartest,